So again, my name is Joe Pierce. I work with SoftEd. I'm a knowledge engineer with SoftEd, and I conduct training in project management, in design thinking, and in the Agile methodology. So I figured today would be a great opportunity to kind of talk about some of the things that we've been teaching, some of the things that I've been learning, and some of the things that I've seen organizations thrive after implementing. So again, if you have not done so already, please just drop a note in the chat. Let us know where you're coming in, where you're dialing in from. And also, if you have any questions or something that you may be just curious about, or even a future webinar topic, please place that in the chat, and we'll get to it. Again, yeah, great. If you want to throw your LinkedIn on there, no worries. We'd appreciate that. So Toronto, Canada, Chester, Virginia, also welcome and welcome. Hatboro, Pennsylvania. Awesome. So again, my name is Joe Pierce. I'll be with you for the next few minutes. And so today's workshop is on how we can effectively blend design thinking workshops with that Agile methodology. And so what we'll do is we'll kind of explore the basics of both approaches. We'll discuss the benefits of combining them. And then we'll kind of talk about some real life examples and integrations. And we'll walk through the steps, some of those key principles that we'll talk about that will help ensure kind of a smooth integration. And maybe even some important practices that we can follow along the way. All right, and then so we'll highlight a few success stories as we do it, and I'll even talk a little bit about some ongoing projects that I'm working with that are blending both design thinking and Agile. So first and foremost is, within our group, we may or may not have anybody with any in-depth knowledge of design thinking or Agile. And so typically I find that we have a blend of people who are new. They've heard some words, but they aren't quite sure exactly what it is. Okay. So first, let's just talk about the design thinking. And what is design thinking? And so design thinking is simply, and it's an approach to solving complex problems. It involves having empathy, doing some experimentation and iteration. It focuses on making sure you have a good understanding of your user's needs, ideating through some potential solutions, doing some prototyping, and then some testing. It's a human-centered approach. It promotes innovation from using a kind of designer's toolkit, helps you understand the possibilities of what's possible within technology, what's possible within people, and what's required for business success. Okay. Using Agile, using design thinking, it actually complements Agile. And so Agile was a software methodology that can be applied to many different areas now. And some of the values it really focuses on are collaboration, flexibility, rapid delivery. And so as we think about what Agile is, we start with a mindset of thinking Agile, and then we begin to do Agile or act in an Agile way. And so you can see here some of those principles of Agile, some of those ideas, and this is all from, you can see from the source there, from Modern Agile. And we're not going to talk necessarily the specifics of every methodology of Agile, but you can see some of those guiding principles that help us apply to problem solving and figuring out creative solutions. The first one in the top left, it says, we have to make people awesome. And by doing that, we give them the opportunity to understand where our customers, where are our customers' pain points? How do we understand what's going wrong or what's going right? And then we can do something about it. And so we can design against those different problems. We can brainstorm ideas and potential solutions. In the top right, you see make safety a prerequisite. And so this goes with any team, any kind of agile, is that it has to be okay for you to bring the wild, crazy ideas to your organization. Okay. And we can start thinking through this and even in the chat, you guys can even begin to put in there, what are some of those things that make you within your organizations feel like your voice is being heard, like you're feeling valued? Is it okay to bring up things that aren't going well? So please put some of those ideas in the chat. What makes you feel safe in your workplace? Okay, and we'll see some of those start coming in. Another agile principle, yeah, thank you, Stefan, is being heard, being recognized for submitted ideas. All great. And those are all very much agile principles. Inclusion, asking for input from everybody on the team. You know, if only one person is thinking, then you're limited just to that one person's ability to think. And good ideas can come from anywhere. Yeah, great ones. Make people awesome. Performance feedback on a regular basis. All very good. Being flexible in dealing with change. Thank you, Deanna. So all these are very agile principles, and as we apply those to problem solving, the more we apply those, the better our teams become. The next one on the bottom left is experiment and learn rapidly. And so I love that is from Jared, is constructive criticism so I can continue to get better every day. And so very, very much agile, experiment and learn rapidly. And so agile takes that flexibility, that curiosity, and we continue to learn. And we learn from brainstorming ideas and then testing. The ability to pivot when needed, great. And then last but not least, you see in the bottom right, it says deliver value continuously. In order to deliver value, we have to say, you know, we have to be able to deliver what our customers are asking for. And we do that in small bites. And Agile is about generating some ideas, delivering in small bites so that we can get feedback. So we are driving feedback. Okay. So all great engagement so far. Please, again, if you have an idea, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. Thank you for joining from all around, and good feedback so far. Let's continue. And so agile projects differ from a traditional plan-driven project. And the difference is that we deliver value incrementally, and we start by delivering in small bites. All right. And each of those small bites creates something of value. Okay. And again, it was initially developed for software developers, but it has shown applications in a lot of areas. And so right now, in my professional experience, I'm advising in the healthcare field, advising in policy, government, human resources. So Agile is finding applications and way beyond just software. Applying these methodologies is the same. So you can see, breaking it down to small chunks, allowing collaboration, flexibility, rapid delivery, and feedback can drive value. And so value is realized through the project. So this slide shows that instead of waiting till the very end at the top to deliver value of a large project, to say it's multi-years, we break this project down into small bites and we deliver it into small increments. In this case, we're calling it sprints, but just call it an increment, small increments. And every time we deliver something of value. And so it says at the end of a sprint, must the end of the sprint always have production ready work. And it has to have, and yes, it does have to have something that has been tested and you're able to demonstrate it. And you're able to demonstrate it and get feedback. And the goal there is instead of waiting till the end of a large project, now you've delivered something small, bite-sized, and of value. Okay. So let's take now and kind of blend those two things together. We're going to talk about and apply it using that design thinking methodology and talk through what that looks like in practice. So when we set up a design thinking workshop, we really focus on the empathize, define, ideate sections of the workshop. And the reason here is to get as much information and create as many ideas as possible. And so let's start. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to start with some research. And I believe that good research is always starts with asking the right questions. And so research and empathizing help us understand at a deeper level what are our users' needs, and then helps us understand, once we understand their needs, then that can become the starting point for new solutions. Using Agile, we're able to quickly respond to change or changing requirements. But combining that design thinking and Agile helps us deliver innovative products, innovative services that meet those users' needs. So let's start real quick. And again, throughout here, I'll give a few examples, and you can see from the slide that is in front of you is that when we empathize, we put ourselves in our customer's shoes. We visualize or we use different techniques to figure out what are our customers thinking, what are they feeling, what are they doing, and then as a result of that, what are they thinking, feeling, and doing? Is we figure out what are their challenges or what opportunities can we find out of looking at these challenges. And you can look at the slide and we look at the left side, which says the jobs to be done. Looking at these jobs to be done, we have to ask the right questions to figure out what is the better future reality that our customers are looking for. And it's not always verbal cues. Sometimes it's those nonverbal cues that will drive us to have a deeper understanding. Okay. So and then over to the right is as we begin to ask the right questions, as we begin to empathize and put ourselves in in the customer's shoes, we can begin to map out what are the things of value. And here are just a couple of good examples. Strategizer has some good templates, but we can start identifying what is of value to our to our customers. Okay. And so by taking a look at your customer's experience, and sometimes you can't understand until you meet them where they are. And to meet them where they are, you have to understand, what are they going through? And the best way to do that is you have to both observe, immerse, and engage with your customers to find out, what are they going through? Now, there are a few tools, and we'll talk about these if you ever want to sign up for any of the Agile classes or through the design thinking classes. Softed has some great courses, but we'll talk about a couple tools. One of those tools is to create a persona, and a persona allows you to create, what does your typical customer look like? Assign them a name, give them a background, and then as you apply that, you can begin to walk through what that customer may be thinking, feeling, or doing. And then as a result, you can take those observations, you can analyze those observations and really develop some insights about what they need from your service, if it's a service, or what they may need from your product. Okay. Another technique that you can use as far as even in research is to, and Milos also says, besides persona, a customer journey map is also helpful. Yeah, great. And that was my next point. Another tool is a customer journey map. And journey mapping is simply a way to map over time the changing requirements of your customer. And so the example I will give is, let's say right now I'm advising on a human resources with the human resources team. And so their customers are their employees. As those employees first are, even before they're hired, there's a recruiting stage. After the recruiting stage, then there's a hiring and onboarding stage. After they're hired and onboarded, then they have their initial training. After their initial training and have been there for a while, then it's kind of in that performance management phase. And then as that employee gets more senior, then you can look at them in the retention stage or promotion stage. And so as you look at each of those stages, their needs and wants and desires are completely different. And so you can map that out over time. You can decide, are there any opportunities, depending on the different types of customers that you have, are there opportunities that they may face as well? And so looking at those, then you can design something specific to those employees. So great. Thank you for bringing that up. So now that we have empathized and placed ourselves in our customer's shoes, we've done some research, we've asked some initial questions, we can begin to define, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And so a quick and easy way to define a problem is to come up with a problem statement. And a good problem statement typically describes the problem and opportunity. It talks about how it may affect your customer, and it describes the impact. And then it also kind of highlights what success looks like. And so looking at this, here's some good examples of what is a good problem statement. Okay. And a good problem statement focuses on, helps you focus your team, helps you focus your efforts. Okay. And so when you define it, you focus on exactly what that problem looks like, and then you can move forward. So here's just a couple of good ideas on good problem statements. Good problem statement will also help you fuel your brainstorming. The next step in the design thinking process is to ideate. And there are lots of different ways to ideate. I will start with ideation is simply creating the most potential ideas. And a good example, if anybody's ever heard of IDEO, it's a design thinking company, organization. They've designed some of the most innovative projects, and they have a whole series of rules associated with their brainstorming. One of the first is to defer judgment. And so if we're going to ideate, we have to be able to come up with as many ideas as possible. And so even the wild, crazy ideas, it's important because although it might not seem like a good idea to you, but it might trigger a greater idea from somebody else. So a couple great ideas to do some good brainstorming. Again, it's mind mapping, and there's both analog and digital tools available to help you do all of these brainstorms. There are different types. And the design company is called IDEO, IDEO, and they have some great information out there. And yes, we'll get the recording and the slide deck posted. These will both also be on LinkedIn. And so with brainstorming, or it says here that we want to diverge to create choices. And so that's all about brainstorming. And then the next part would be to converge to make choices or to do some prioritization. And so we can talk about a little bit of that. So I like to do some creative brainstorming. I like to set up some times. It has to be time bound or you'll be brainstorming forever. I like to keep it in small bites, and you'd be amazed at how well you can brainstorm an idea. And so based on your research, again, we started with the empathy, the research and empathy, asking some of the right questions. We have some questions. We think we understand what our customers might need. And now we're brainstorming. And so we'll do a few rounds, or as I will call an iteration of brainstorming. We will come up with as many ideas as possible. So we'll try to go for volume first. And I call that, we go for breadth first, and then we'll go for depth. And so we'll go for a whole bunch of ideas. We'll take those ideas, and then, like I said, we'll converge to make choices. So we'll do some prioritizing. And one of my favorite ways to prioritize is to do dot voting. And you assign a specific number of votes that each of your team members has, and they can spend those like currency. So they could put if they had 5 dots for voting, they can spend all 5 dots on what they think is the best idea. Or they can take 5 ideas and put 1 of their dots on each of those ideas. Or they could put 2 on one idea, 3 on another. So it's their choice on how they want to do it. But what it allows your team to do is to have a look at how they would prioritize. And then you can take a step back and look at how you have prioritized and see if everybody agrees on what are the best ideas. Then you can take those best ideas and do some further exploration. So as far as further exploration, you can go, the next step would be to create a prototype. And if we're going to create a prototype, we look at 1 or 2 of those best ideas that came out, and we're going to create a prototype of that idea. And a prototype does not have to be very complicated. As a matter of fact, it's best if it's fairly simple. One of my favorites is to actually create a paper prototype. So For example, if you were going to create an app, you would create a short, you would create a mock-up of that app on paper, and then you would walk through it and make sure that it's doing exactly like you plan that it will. I see Aaron loves prototypes. Anybody in here? Yeah. Anybody here love prototyping other than Aaron? And tell us what's great about prototyping, Aaron. And for me, I love prototyping specifically because it allows you to, at a low cost, to demonstrate how something will see what they want. Because some people, as Maduri says, some people don't know what they want till they see it. And so we get to demonstrate, yeah. So you get to demonstrate how this new solution or idea will work. It brings abstract concepts to the concrete, as Aaron says. So great. And we get the client's feedback. And so the goal of prototyping is to get feedback. And we take that feedback and we can begin to adjust or adapt based on that feedback. So all great discussion and great points. And I always say start with paper, because it's easy if and it's not a heavy investment if we're just doing a paper mock-up, as opposed to, say, we're developing a whole new policy or a whole new application. We can begin to frame it out in that paper prototype. Another way is, I like to say in prototyping, is to create what I call just that science fair project type presentation, and where you're presenting the results of your research, you're presenting the results of your surveys, your customer engagements, and that visual representation, and then you can describe your idea and then get feedback. And so, yeah, as it says here in the slide, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. And so I tend to agree with that. And I don't know about you, but I generally can use one less meeting in my week. Okay. And then, over time, again, since this is not a linear process, the design thinking process is not a linear process, which means that we may go from the empathize phase, define it. We may take some of those prototypes that may come up and get feedback. That feedback may drive further ideation. So we may have to go back and forth between these stages. And so I want to make sure everybody understands that when we look at this design thinking process, is that the goal is to generate ideas. The more ideas we generate, sometimes we're going to have to explore them. We're going to prototype the best ideas. The feedback from those prototypes may lead back to more ideas. Yeah, moving back from tests to other steps is not failure, because you're learning. And so the learning that happens could drive a better ultimate product. So it's better to fail failure in smaller bites that drive future innovation, or you may be able to solve the problem better. Yeah, it's not a failure if you learn from it. Great points. And Malo says design sprint methodology. I guess I'm not exactly familiar with that, and we can. I'd love to have a whole separate conversation about it, but I'd have to do a little bit more research before making sure I come back and talk that effectively. All right, so the next step is the validation and test. And so once we have a prototype and we have something that we think we've shown the customer and we've got great feedback on it, and then we want to implement it. And we want to implement it and find out, is this solving the customer's problem? And making sure that it is, it's adding value and it is successful. So we have to be able to measure. And one of the things that we have to do is make sure that whatever we're doing, we measure it and we can track success. And so we have to have some goals, some signals, and some metrics. And so we have to be able to not only make great decisions based on actionable metrics, but we also have to make sure that the stakeholders feel good. And they have to feel that they've done exactly, we're meeting their needs. So in order to fully integrate those design thinking and agile methodology, we have to focus really on a few principles. And I'm going to kind of go back to this slide. And some of those principles really is that we have to have collaboration between our team members. Between our team members and all the stakeholders who may be impacted or impact this idea or the new innovation. And so we have to gather feedback. And if you look at this and what's common between design thinking and the agile process is there are multiple feedback loops, and we're continually looking at how do we gain feedback from our users, our customers. Second, we have to have a shared understanding of what are the users' needs and what goals do we have that are necessary to guide that decision-making process. And then finally, it's about iteration. How do we iterate? How do we iterate and continue to gain feedback as we develop solutions? And then how do we continue to adapt? A couple things as well. And again, please, if you have additional questions and answers, please put them in the chat, or you can use the Q&A, and I'll do my best to get to them. And so a few other things that we look at in design thinking is how do we prioritize? How do we prioritize based on what brings the most value to our users? How do we break down work into smaller chunks? How do we deliver frequently? And so these are all things that if we are doing them right, then we are going to deliver value to the customer. All right, before we wrap up, and I know this is hopefully at least whet your appetite for design thinking or the agile methodology. There are numerous courses through SoftEd that go over the fundamentals or dive a little bit deeper. Please feel free to reach out and do some exploration. I want to leave you with a couple case studies, and I'll talk specifically about an HR organization that I'm working, and then I'll give another one. But one is it's a county government in Virginia. So what they did first is they conducted some training on agile fundamentals, specifically for their human resources personnel. And then they followed with a class on design thinking essentials. Their leadership engaged their customers and came up, and also all the HR professionals within their organization. They came up with 5 areas that they wanted to have some specific improvements in. Within each of those 5 areas, they assigned a cross-functional team those cross-functional teams were given the resources and the training to begin to come up with some creative solutions. And so they wanted to use the design thinking methodology, the Agile to work through potential processes, generate some innovative solutions, prototype and test some solutions, and then their plan is to implement the best solutions into their organization. So the effort is ongoing right now. Their teams have just begun their iterations. They're already yielding some new human resource policies, new communication practices, and some new IT solutions. So it's actively working. And again, I'll hopefully talk about their success in a future webinar. Another example is the company of Nordstrom, and there's plenty of design thinking examples out there from a lot of different organizations, but Nordstrom used some design thinking to deeply understand their customers' pain points. And so they were able to deliver a product that really helped target what their customers wanted. And as a result, it was pretty successful in the market. And so what they were doing is they created a new in-store sunglasses app for shoppers looking for sunglasses. And so instead of them just picking a solution, spending a whole bunch of money on that solution, they used some design thinking. And so what they did is they engaged customers in one of their flagship stores and asked them what they want. So they began to explore their customers' needs. They began to ask them what kind of ideas they may have to enhance their shopping experience. Based on that feedback, they took that feedback and created a paper version app. They walked through that paper version app with some of the customers, and they got that feedback. Based on that feedback, they showed that prototype to different customers, and within a week, they created a fully functional app that they could test and operationalize. And so what they really gathered from that was that, customers wanted to be able to compare not just the photo, but actually look at themselves with different sunglasses on in real time. They wanted to be able to zoom in and out of pictures, tag an image, and tag it to themselves and a model of sunglasses so that they can continue to shop. So two examples, one a county government and the other a large department store. So both design thinking and Agile apply to any kind of not just software development. So it applies to people, processes, anything that you can think to apply it to, but it will help you drive innovation. So with that, I think I'm close to finishing. I want to open it up. If you have any specific questions, I would love to do my best to answer it. And I'll stay for. All right. Okay, great. I understand how design thinking and Agile should work in conjunction, but how are they different? So they are different in that design thinking is generally going towards a specific solution that you're trying to ideate. The Agile is, I would say it's a way of thinking as well. So they are different. Agile is just used to solve different problems. So again, they are probably more alike than they are different. It would be my answer. Great question. Anybody else? All right. Yeah. So A few questions that typically come out are what are some of those, what are some of our challenges in dealing with design thinking and agile? And some of you may have some challenges. Some of the ones that I typically come up with are some of the typical ones that I come up with are just aligning team members, using team members from different backgrounds. Yeah, I like that. Design thinking is part of a product management framework. Yes, I think it is. Are your development teams involved in the design thinking prototyping session for the VA or Nordstrom? And no, I am not. Yeah, and Stefan, great question. During ideate, do we converge after we diverge? Yes. And so what I like to do is we will first diverge. And so first we're going to diverge. We're going to come up with as many ideas as possible. And one way I like to describe this is we may conduct an individual brainstorm for a short period of time. Then we take those ideas and we have everybody talk about their ideas. So you converge after you diverge, talk about those ideas, and then brainstorm as a group, because you might see my wild, crazy idea that might stimulate another idea, or someone else may be able to take it and twist that just a little bit to mean something else or be a better example. And then after that, what we may do is come back and, talk about them some more. Yeah, great one. Alexia is, what are your tips for a team just starting to use Agile or design thinking? What have you seen to be successful when teams are new to using those methodologies? And so I have a lot of tips, but to keep it short, is the first thing is I would advise you to do some, even for one or two of your team members, to get a little bit of training in Agile. And so just learning the methodology, learning the practices and how to apply them will help you gain some success. As well as new teams using those methodologies need to know that there's no perfect way to do Agile or design thinking. And so it seems messy, but is to keep going. And the best thing to do is, where I've seen teams achieve success, is to try out the methodology, stop and pause and do an Agile term called a retrospective, or to review and reflect on the work that you've done. After you've done that review and reflection, choose the one or two things you're going to fix for the next iteration. And if you keep that small and you keep working in small bites, you're able to begin making progress and begin gaining momentum as you work together. And the teams will be able to do that. And then finally, my last advice would be, don't be afraid to even get some coaching on how you're doing with Agile. And coaching will also help your teams continue to work and work better. All right. Yeah, you're very welcome. So great. Thank you. Thank you for being an engaged group today. Thank you for joining. Again, please feel free. The next webinar I'm going to do is July 25th. And someone had mentioned employee or customer journey mapping. And we're going to talk about employee journey maps during that webinar, the next webinar. So that is the 25th of July. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining. And look forward to seeing you at a future session or a future training.